Can a cop pull you over for an air freshener hanging from your car's rearview mirror? The Supreme Court said yes. This happened to Richard Houghton. Richard was driving through Wisconsin with an air freshener, one of those pine tree air fresheners, on his rearview mirror, and he got pulled over by cops. All because what? He got searched, arrested, and ultimately went to court because a cop didn't know the law. Now, this is not hyperbole. It's certainly not clickbait. This has been the law, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, since 2014. Today, I'm going to show you how one Supreme Court case opened the door for the cops to make legal mistakes, ignorance, in fact, and for you to pay the price. Because now, something as small as an air freshener can lead to a traffic stop, a search, an arrest, or even worse. I'm Jeff Hampton, the People's Lawyer, and by the end of this video, you'll know, number one, the Supreme Court ruling that let cops get the law wrong. Number two, we're going to study how two different drivers in two different states were pulled over for air fresheners on their rearview mirror and how it led to their conviction. Finally, we're going to analyze what the court said and find what you can do right now to protect yourself and stop cops from using air fresheners or anything else in your car against you. Let's start with the case that changed everything. In 2014, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Hine versus North Carolina that cops can pull you over for a traffic stop based upon a law even if they got the law wrong. Here's what happened. A man named Nicholas Hine was driving through North Carolina. A cop then pulled him over because he said one of his brake lights was out. Now, check this out. The officer believed that was illegal. But under North Carolina law, it actually wasn't illegal. North Carolina law only requires that one of your brake lights is operational. So this should have been an illegal stop, right? Wrong. The Supreme Court ruled that it was true that the officer did make a mistake, but they ruled that the officer's mistake was reasonable. So as long as the mistake was reasonable, the officer could still proceed and the traffic stop was legal. This is what's known in the legal circles as a mistake of law. And in essence, the U.S. Supreme Court created a legal loophole for cops to exploit to absolutely use their ignorance of the law as a way to search you and possibly arrest you. In fact, in the dissenting opinion, Justice Sotomayor said the following, and I quote, "One wonders how a citizen seeking to be law-abiding might proceed." Now that was the end of her quote. But if you add to the rest of what she was saying, how is a law-abiding citizen supposed to proceed when cops can get the law wrong and use it to do essentially whatever they want? I want you to think about the legal loophole that was created here. If a cop misreads the law and does whatever he does, and then later, of course, it goes to court and the court rules that the cop's mistake was reasonable, you essentially have no constitutional rights. Now, let's take that same logic from North Carolina and let's move it over to Wisconsin. In the case of State versus Houghton, Richard Houghton was pulled over in the city of East Troy. Why? Because the police officer claimed that Houghton had an illegal air freshener on his mirror and he was missing his front license plate. But here's the truth. Wisconsin law doesn't require a front license plate, and the air freshener was not obstructing his view. Still, the officer used it as a pretext, as a reason to pull Houghton over, searched his car, found a little bit of marijuana, and of course now Houghton was arrested. Houghton's lawyers challenged the stop, and the lower court agreed with Houghton and his attorneys by saying it was an unconstitutional search. But the Wisconsin Supreme Court reversed the ruling. This is a little shocking, isn't it? We all know that police are supposed to have probable cause, or at least to pull you over, they're supposed to have reasonable suspicion to pull you over here. But if cops don't know the law, what incentive do we have here? There's no reasons for cops to even know the law at all. They can just come up with whatever they think is illegal, use it as an excuse to pull you over, and now what? Two misunderstandings equals reasonable suspicion, and then ultimately probable cause? There were zero illegal activities going on here, but yet these stops and searches still held up in court. But it doesn't stop in Wisconsin. Now let's take a look in Vermont. In the case of State versus Hurley, Robert Hurley was pulled over for, you guessed it, an air freshener on his rearview mirror. The Vermont Supreme Court openly admitted the law does not ban you hanging objects on your rearview mirror as long as they don't obstruct the view of the driver. In fact, the police officer had the law completely wrong. He thought that anything hanging on the rearview mirror made it immediately illegal. In fact, the state even argued this. The law was not even correct, but yet they argued it to the court. And here's a quote. The quote said this, If the law were as the state claimed, people could be pulled over for beads, crucifixes, even handicap placards. So the cops, completely wrong. The state, arguing in front of the appellate court, completely wrong. Yet the Vermont Supreme Court upheld the stop. You guessed it, the Vermont Supreme Court now said that the officer's mistake was deemed to be reasonable. Now maybe I'm the only one that's shocked here. I don't know about you. You let me know in the comments. But the court was really clear that none of this made sense. The cop was wrong. The state arguing in court was wrong, but yet they turn around and turn a blind eye and they allow the search to happen anyway. So here's why this should scare you. Cops can now stop you even if you didn't break a law. If a judge arbitrarily decides that the cop reasonably misunderstood the law, then now this mistake by the cop can lead to you being pulled over and receive a traffic ticket, maybe receive a search where they tear the inside of your car apart, or number 3, it could lead to a criminal charge based upon no illegal activity. It's like playing a game where the referee doesn't know the rules, but yet he still calls fouls on you for violating them. Now I want to pause and ask you, how do we really know if the news we are reading is unbiased and fair? With competing narratives, media bias, and big tech censorship, cutting through the noise to see what's really happening isn't always easy. Luckily, there is a solution. Ground News gives you the freedom to discover whether what you are reading is unbiased and fair so that you can come to your own conclusions. Isn't that what the news is supposed to be about? Check them out for yourself at ground.news/Hampton. Let's take the recent decision by the U.S. Department of Justice to abandon police reform settlements with Minneapolis and Louisville. Agreements that were initiated after the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. As we analyze the coverage, the top right displays key details: the number of sources reporting, their political bias distribution, reliability ratings, and ownership information. These insights help reveal how different outlets are shaping the narrative. One of the most powerful features of Ground News is the headline comparison. Here we can see for ourselves how stories are being framed by different news outlets. By clicking on the left, center, and right, we can observe the language and tone used, allowing us to draw our own conclusions. For instance, a left-leaning headline might focus on civil rights implications, while a right-leaning headline might emphasize federal overreach concerns. My favorite feature, though, is the blind spot feed. With blind spot, you can see news stories that are being disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. In our polarized environment, I have found this feature to be an amazing resource to discover news stories that I might have missed otherwise because only one side was talking about it. It's perfect for better understanding friends and family who think differently. The best part? Ground News has a special offer for all of my viewers. If you sign up through my link, you'll get 40% off the Vantage plan, the same plan I use to get unlimited access to all their features. Go to ground.news/Hampton to give it a try yourself. Click the link down in the description or scan the QR code to stay better informed and transform the way you read the news. So let's stop for a second and identify what can we control and what can we not control. The first thing we cannot control is a cop not taking the time to know the law. They're supposed to have gone to the academy. They are supposed to be freshened up on the law, take the required classes, study what needs to be done. We can't control that they don't know the law, and we can't control that if they come at you with an attitude trying to use their ignorance to take away your rights. But there are some specific steps that we can take to take away the justifications and excuses from the cops based on their ignorance to make sure we're able to keep a distance between them and us so our rights don't get further violated. Number one, it's as simple as this. Remove all your air fresheners, your beads, your dice, whatever you have hanging from your rear view mirror, remove all of it so that they don't even have an excuse there. You can put air fresheners in other places of your car. You can put other items you want in other locations of your car, but I would not hang them from your rear view mirror because you're basically painting yourself as a target for cops' ignorance. Number two, check the simple things. Check your lights on your car. Check your brake lights, your tag lights, your bulbs, Make sure and do this because cops will use this as an excuse, even if they don't know the law, to try to claim that one of those is out, and that's the reason they can legally pull you over. Number 3, here's another simple one. Keep your insurance and your registration up to date. These are the technicalities cops are looking for to get into your car. Number 4, clear your dash of stickers or obstructions. Another big one is I've seen people put stickers. Maybe they layer them over the top part of their windshield or something along the bottom part. Or maybe you stick a notebook or something over the top and it creates a reflection over the window. That's going to create this illusion for the cop where even if they're totally wrong on the law, they're going to use it as a reason to claim it's obstructing your view and they'll use it to pull you over. And finally, this goes with number 4, make sure nothing is blocking your windshield. I mean literally nothing. Because if cops think there's anything they can't see, they will now assume you can't see it either, even if that's not the law. The fewer excuses cops have to pull you over, the less power they have to make this illegal but yet so-called reasonable stop. So think about this for a minute. If there's no excuse that you give them, it helps take away the pretext for the stop, then we're talking about no stop at all. So finally, what if cops do pull you over like they did Mr. Houghton and others, and they violate your rights based on their own ignorance? What are the steps you can take to protect yourself in court? Number 1, have your attorney immediately request the dash cam footage and the body camera footage. And hopefully, if you had your own footage in the car, which we'll talk about here in just a second, you'll be able to show and prove there were no obstructions. There was nothing that was impeding your view of where you were going. You'll also be able to show that the cop was just guessing. He had no idea what he was doing and there was no legal search here. Sometimes proving how weak the stop really was could allow you to still win your motion to suppress in court because the state doesn't always appeal these rulings further up to the appellate courts. So the Supreme Court now says it's okay for cops to make legal mistakes and be ignorant on the law, as long as their mistake was reasonable. But I think what makes me the most angry about this is that we, you, me, we the people, we don't get that luxury. How many times have we all heard ignorance of the law is no defense? That's only true if you're not a cop. If you misunderstand a law, you get fined, you get searched, maybe even arrested. If a cop misunderstands the law, they get to search. They get to possibly make an arrest and maybe even get a promotion. This is a double standard, and it puts everyone, I mean everyone, at risk. So what are the steps you can take very quickly to stop cops from violating your rights and making up laws like this? Number 1 is to know your rights. When the cops are not going to take the time to arm themselves with the law, you can do the exact opposite. You can take the time to know you have a right to remain silent. You have a right to not be held on the side of the road for an unreasonable period of time. You can ask, officer, am I free to leave? You can say, I will not answer any further questions without my attorney present. Number 2, after you now know your rights, you can exercise your rights by making sure you do not consent. You refuse consent of the search of your car, your person, or your property. And number 3, perhaps one of the most important things you can do, if a cop comes up and starts talking some sort of weird language to you about something that he claims is illegal that's clearly not, it's time to pull out the phone. In every state, I don't care where you live in the country, you can record police activity. The only limitation to this is that let's say the officer was involved in someone else being arrested, if you interfered with the public duties of that officer with someone else and you got too close or impeded that, you could run into a charge there. But when it involves you, when you're sitting in the car and a cop is now claiming your air freshener is illegal, pull out your phone. Don't trust the cops have the right camera on. Don't trust they didn't turn them off. Many police officers and departments will either cover their camera, they'll turn the camera off or the volume down. It's important. Pull out your phone, record the interaction as much as possible. And when you do so, take this strategy. Instead of being directly aggressive with the officer looking over at him, you can actually pull out the camera, look at the camera and say, officer, I'm confused. Are you telling me that it's illegal for me to have an air freshener in my car? Can you help me understand where that's at in the traffic code? Because I don't believe this is illegal. And you have the opportunity and the right to record everything. Never assume the officer is recording anything. And finally, if the cop tries to take their ignorance of the law out on you, by all means fight it in court. Make sure you try to shut this down because there are still some district courts where you can win these arguments that we're talking about here based upon the ignorance of the police. And many district attorneys' offices are not going to actually appeal any of those rulings up to a higher court. Remember our mantra here. No excuse that you give them equals no pretext for the officer equals no traffic stop. Now, we just covered how cops are using air fresheners to pull you over, but what are the other tricks that cops are using? Are there other legal tricks cops can use to pull you over and violate your rights during a traffic stop? Check out this next video where I break down how to stop cops from tricking you during a traffic stop. See you over there.